just combine the two anyway, so I think that's a good idea. I think both have positives and negatives, so I wouldn't go with just one or the other. I would want to see how you would combine them together. One of my questions was about the cardholders clause in 1058. You talk about having to have principal officers, board members, agents, employees of registered dispensaries and registered testing labs be cardholders. Would that be my hoping? I'm sorry, I'm horrible at public speaking. I pretty much failed in school.
You're doing just fine. Please continue.
Would that be a mandatory part of the bill for everybody involved? And how specific would that get? Are we talking about the janitorial staff who goes in and mops the floors in the lab? Because that could get, we have a staff of 84 people who work at our company. So if we have to get a card holder for every single person who works in that building, that's going to get kind of, and since it's my job to do all that, I'd really rather try and keep it limited to who absolutely needs them.
Good job, security.
The next one I had, the next comment or question I had was also about 1058. And in there, it mentions being accredited by ISO by a third party, but also having to register with the state, at which point, to me, that seems kind of redundant, having two separate entities that we answer to, because then what if the state says, hey, we want this for our registered labs, but our accrediting body says, hey, we want this, and there's a conflict. Being the QC officer, I have run into this in the lab because we have AIHA, we have A2LA, we have NELAC, we have State of Maine, and they do conflict every once in a while. So if we are registered by a third-party accrediting body, would it really be necessary to, or if we're certified by a third-party accrediting body, would it really be necessary to register with the state too? And would the state be willing to work with the third-party accrediting body to make sure that we don't have conflicting rules? The third one has to do with the accreditation. Would you, as far as the accreditation goes, would there be one accrediting agency, like everybody gets accredited by A2LA, or everybody gets accredited by this? Because even from agency to agency and people who accredit, even when they go by the same standards, there's still variation depending on who's doing it and their interpretation of the rules. So if you've got one person certified by A2LA and another one by AIHA, you may have slightly different rules that apply to these labs, and therefore you don't have like apples to apples testing anymore. And my last one, and I know I'm out of time, has to do with 1058. I agree that the dispensary should not be doing their own testing. 1058 says it. 1059 actually says that the registered primary caregiver, owner, and operator of marijuana testing facility can do it for research and development purposes. Unless this is mandatory testing for some reason, technically it would all be R&D. Unless you're answering to a compliance testing of you need this done for this and this needs to be this, at that point it all becomes research and development because there's no actual regulation as to what should be there. So it makes me wonder. I think, one, the testing should be done by an outside lab and not by the dispensary, and two, the way this is worded, it almost makes it seem like it's giving the dispensaries a loophole around that. So those are my comments and concerns.
All right. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there any additional testimony, neither for nor against, but seeking to provide additional information for the committee?
Close.
All right.
I just want to clarify two things.
All right.
Sorry. My name is Dan Walker. I represent Wellness Connection in Maine. Just had to clarify two things because I keep hearing it over and over again. These will not be owned, these licensed labs will not be owned by dispensaries. It's written the same way in there for both caregivers and dispensaries. and that is that they both need to be, you'll have ISO certified labs, and if you're going to put a label on something you're going to hold out and sell to the product, whether it's where you have the composition or the potency, that needs to be certified. If you want to do internal R&D, you don't need to go get certified. But we just wanted to make sure, and that goes for caregivers, it goes for dispensaries. Now, as you heard, ISO requires that you be independent. You cannot be you cannot be a caregiver, you can't be a dispensary, you can't be a doctor with your own patients. It requires that under the ISO, so that's it. And it's not mandatory, again. If you want to put a label on it, you want to hold yourself out that this is what's on the label, that's the requirement. If you either want to put a label just with a name on it of what it is, or no label, you don't have to. So that's it.
All right. Great. Any questions? Seeing no questions, thank you.
No, he had a question. He had a question.
Where? Oh, don't lean back, Senator. Representative Daniel.
I'll catch up with you.
All right. Is there anyone else here to speak neither for nor against? Just be aware that I am wielding a gavel. All right. Are there any requests for additional information from the committee? Representative Sanderson.
Thank you. Just for a reminder for the committee, I know we did have a medical marijuana program report back from the department, but if we could get an electronic copy of the report that Mr. Albert was referring to as a refresher and informer, that would be very helpful.
Senator Haskell.
Thank you. I don't know who this, I don't mean who the person is. I mean, who's the entity who did this and what are the rest of the states? What's this report look like?
I have that information for you. Thank you.
Well, can we get that? So if you can provide that to our analysts, and we'll have it for the work session. Any additional requests for information, Representative Burstein?
I was just wondering.
Can you turn on your mic?
I was wondering if Mr. Kruger would come to the work session for the lab. Great, thank you.
Great. Additional requests? All right, seeing none. Well, don't leave just yet after this. So this public hearing on LD 1058 and 1059 is now closed. I would entertain a motion to go into work session on 1058. Representative Malaby.
So moved.
All right, it has been moved and seconded by Representative Malaby and Senator Haskell to go into work session on LD 1058. All right, we'll take up the work session. Representative Malaby.
Move on to pass on LD 1058.
All right, it's been moved and seconded by Representative Malaby and Representative Hammond ought not to pass on LD 1058. Any discussion on the pending motion? Representative Sanderson.
I would just remind everybody to keep 1058 in your mind as we're working 1059.
All right. Duly noted. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor of the motion of ought not to pass, please raise your hand. All opposed? To vote. All right, I'll close the work session. I just want to say one final thing before we adjourn, and then if anyone else has anything else. Just want to say, I'm sorry. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for being here today. I know it's a long day. I'm sorry we weren't able to schedule this a week ago when it would have been April 20th, but it was Patriots Day, so we were not in the session.
Nicely played.
Anyway, Representative Gattini.
Again, I was in and out of the room today, but when she presented LD 21, Representative Russell also suggested we could kill that bill.
Do we want to take that one up
didn't
right
have
now?
enough. Well, we didn't have enough people in the room at the time in order to do it.
Which LD number is that?
It was LD 21.
All right, Representative Sanderson.
So moved.
Can you turn off your mic, Representative Gattini? Representative Sanderson?
Move LD 21 up like that.
Well, we got to go and move into work session
Oh.
first.
So moved.
All right, so we'll enter work session, moved by Representative Sanderson, seconded by Representative Malaby to enter work session on LD 21. Representative Sanderson.
I will make motion that LD 21 ought not to pass.
All right, seconded by Representative Gattini, moved by Representative Sanderson, LD 21 ought not to pass. Any discussion on the pending motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion ought not to pass, please raise your hand. All opposed? It's unanimous. All right, work session closed. Any final business before we adjourn for the day? Seeing no additional business, then we shall adjourn.